Ever wished you could just fly to work, escape the traffic, enjoy the view?
Oh, yeah.
Well, today we're diving into a world where that's actually possible,
Interesting.
at least in the minds of English language learners.
Okay.
You see, our source material is a video titled, "What If Humans Could Fly? Learn English with Fun and Imagination."
Uh-huh.
And it takes this wild idea and uses it to teach vocabulary and grammar.
That's a pretty clever concept.
Yeah.
Using something fantastical to make learning stick. I mean, we all remember those dry textbook lessons, right? This video tries a different approach.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Right.
The video starts with this simple question. What if humans could fly?
Right.
And then throws out example sentences like, if I could fly, I would explore the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already picturing myself soaring over the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
But, this gets to something interesting, this idea that learning is more effective when it's, well, fun. Is there any truth to that?
It definitely makes sense intuitively. Our brains are wired to remember things that are emotionally engaging. Think about it. You're more likely to remember a funny story than a list of facts. So, by tapping into our imagination, these types of videos can make learning feel less like a chore and more like an adventure.
So instead of drilling yourself with flashcards, you're picturing yourself with wings dodging skyscrapers. That's a much more exciting mental image.
Exactly. And speaking of exciting, the video doesn't just stop at sentences. It actually creates a whole dialogue between two friends experiencing flight for the first time.
Ooh, a dialogue.
Yeah.
That sounds like my cue.
Uh-huh.
Want to try acting it out?
I'm game.
All right, you're my best friend, and we've just taken off for our first flight ever.
Whoa, this is incredible. We're actually flying.
I know, right? It's like being a bird. Look at the city down there. Everything looks so small.
I told you ditching the car was a good idea. Imagine doing this every morning instead of sitting in traffic.
Yeah, but what if we get tired? Where do we land? Good point. We'll just find a nice fluffy cloud to take a nap on.
That's the spirit. Always have a backup plan, even when you're flying.
Okay, maybe not the best plan.
But this dialogue really does highlight how human flight would bring up some pretty tricky questions. I mean, landing on a cloud, not exactly FAA approved.
Right. And think about it. If everyone could suddenly fly, wouldn't we need entirely new rules? Like air traffic control would need a serious upgrade.
Not to mention, where would we all park our wings? Would we need special flight lanes to avoid collisions? This scenario opens up a whole can of logistical worms.
It does, and the video actually touches on some of these issues later on. But for now, let's get back to the language learning aspect.
Right, because this whole scenario is just the backdrop for teaching English, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what comes next?
Well, after the dialogue, the video dives into some key vocabulary words related to flight.
Like what? Give me some examples. Well, they talk about words like soar, hover, and wings, of course. They give definitions and then show how to use these words in sentences. For example, the bird soared high above the clouds. Or, if I had wings, I could fly to school. Simple, but effective.
Those words are so evocative, especially soar. It makes me think of effortless gliding, like an eagle.
And that's exactly what the video is going for, to make those words come alive through this fantastical scenario.
But how does it connect to grammar?
Wow.
I remember you mentioning something called the second conditional.
Ah, yes. That's the grammatical structure the video focuses on. And it's perfect for a scenario like this because the second conditional is all about talking about hypothetical situations, things that aren't actually real. Like, if I could fly, I would. You see what I mean?
So the video is not only teaching you words, but also showing you how to use them in grammatically correct sentences. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But for someone who might not be familiar with all this grammar jargon, what exactly is the second conditional?
Okay.
How does it work?
It's actually simpler than it sounds. Think of it as a way to explore those what-if scenarios, like our human flight fantasy. The basic formula is, if something unreal were true, then something else would happen.
Okay, I think I get it. So like if I had wings, then I wouldn't need to buy a plane ticket. Is that right?
Exactly. You've got the hang of it. And the video uses lots of fun examples like that to demonstrate how the second conditional works.
I'm starting to see how this whole learning English through imagination thing could actually work.
Right.
You're not just memorizing grammar rules, you're using them to build these cool hypothetical worlds.
And that's one of the key insights from research on language acquisition. When you're actively using the language, experimenting with it, even making mistakes, you're actually strengthening your grasp of the grammar.
So it's like learning to fly by actually jumping off a cliff and figuring out how to use those wings on the way down.
Yeah.
A bit risky, maybe, but definitely more exciting than sitting in a classroom.
Well, maybe not that extreme. But the idea is that active engagement beats passive learning. And that's where this video gets even more clever. It doesn't just explain the second conditional, it actually challenges viewers to use it.
You're telling me there's homework in this fantasy flight school. What kind of challenge is it?
It's actually pretty fun. The video prompts viewers to write their own short story about their first day of flying.
Now that sounds like my kind of assignment. I'm already picturing myself soaring through the clouds, writing my story on a little notepad strapped to my leg.
And the instructions encourage them to use at least 3 of those new vocabulary words we discussed, and of course to use the second conditional to describe their imaginary experiences.
So it's like they're giving you all the tools you need to build your own flying adventure. You've got your words, your grammar structure, and now it's up to you to create something amazing.
Exactly. And the video even provides an example story to get the creative juices flowing. It's something like, if I could fly, I would soar above the city and visit the tallest buildings. I'd hover over the park and enjoy the view of the clouds.
That's a pretty good start. But I'm already thinking bigger. What if I flew to Paris for breakfast and then zoomed over to the Great Wall of China for lunch?
Those are some ambitious first-day flights, but that's the beauty of it. There are no limits to where your imagination can take you. And by putting those ideas into words, into sentences, you're solidifying your understanding of the language.
You know, it's funny, I came into this thinking, oh, a video about flying, that sounds whimsical. But now I'm seeing how powerful it can be as a learning tool. It's like taking something we all dream about and using it to unlock a whole new level of understanding.
And that brings us back to the bigger picture. This deep dive wasn't just about language learning. It was about exploring a what-if scenario, a fundamental human desire. So let's shift gears for a bit and talk about what human flight would really mean for the world, not just for grammar lessons.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Right. Where do we start? Well, we've already touched on some of the logistical headaches like air traffic control parking.
Right. But let's go deeper. Imagine the impact on our cities. Would we even need roads anymore? Or cars? Maybe we'd have these vertical cities with buildings designed for takeoff and landing.
Whoa, like skyscrapers with balconies for personal aircraft? That's a wild image. But wouldn't that completely change the way we live?
Oh, yeah.
Think about commutes. They'd be so short.
Exactly.
And the views would be incredible.
Exactly. Property values would go haywire. Suddenly, a penthouse apartment isn't just about the view, it's about the easy access to the sky.
Wow.
And what about travel? Forget airports and long flights. You could just soar across the country for a weekend getaway.
Yeah. Talk about freedom.
Yeah.
But here's where I get a little nervous. What about the environmental impact of all this flying? We're already struggling with air pollution as it is.
That's a critical point. If we weren't careful, human flight could be an ecological disaster. We'd need some serious technological advancements to make it sustainable. Imagine biofueled wings or personal aircraft powered by solar energy.
That would be amazing. But even then, think about the noise pollution. Millions of people buzzing around in the sky. Wouldn't that be incredibly disruptive?
Yeah.
Especially for wildlife. Birds, in particular, might be in trouble.
You're raising some tough but important ethical questions. If we achieved human flight, we'd have a huge responsibility to mitigate its impact on the environment. It wouldn't be just about personal freedom, it would be about finding a way to coexist with nature in this new reality.
This is making me think about that final question you posed earlier. If humans could fly, would we still appreciate the beauty of birds in flight? It's like, would their effortless grace seem less special if we were all clumsily flapping around up there too?
It's hard to say for sure. Maybe it would make us take birds for granted, or maybe seeing them navigate the skies with such elegance would make us even more awestruck. Perhaps it would inspire us to refine our own flying techniques to learn from nature's mastery.
It's fascinating to consider, isn't it?
Yeah.
This whole thought experiment has taken us from basic English grammar to city planning, environmental ethics, and the meaning of beauty. Who knew a language learning video could spark such a deep dive?
And that's the power of approaching learning with an open mind and a sense of curiosity. You never know where a single question like, what if humans could fly, might lead you. It's a reminder that even the most fantastical ideas can offer valuable insights into the real world and our place within it.
So to our listeners out there, we leave you with this. What are your thoughts on this question of human flight and our appreciation for birds? What a perspective change? Share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear them.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep letting your imagination soar.
That's a wrap for this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of knowledge, insights, and maybe even a few more flights of fancy.